Hello and welcome to the Take It EV podcast, episode 32. Today's episode is about life with disability and EVs, accessibility, usability, and how we can benefit from it. It is also a bit of a reminder that a lot of us or our family members, probably at some point in life, we will need some form of assistance in our driving or mobility. But John, who's my today's guest, is a super funny guy. If you've never interacted with him on Twitter, I'll leave his details in the description below. His McBeardy face on Twitter is a super funny guy. He's also running Kent EV Group. So if you live in Kent in the UK, just the usual places, and come and join us to have a chat. And if there's a meetup in person, just come, and I might be there in person, actually. And now, on with the show.
Well, hello. I'm John Brooks, known quite a lot on social media with electric vehicles as Beardy McBeardface. I've owned an EV for 2 years now, but I've been sort of bumbling around in the EV sector or marketplace for probably nearly 5 years. My road to EVs started watching an episode of the Gadget Show when Robert Llewellyn was a guest, and Craig Charles said to him, "Oh, how's your little YouTube channel going?" And I thought, well, I like Robert Llewellyn quite a lot, so I'll have a look at that. And I watched the entire back catalogue of the Fully Charged that there was at that time, and I became hooked. And I said to my wife, the next car we get, as if I can do it, will be electric. And fortunately enough, we managed to get a Bmw i3 through the Motability scheme, and it's been really good. I've really enjoyed the car, and I love EVs and everything about them, really.
That was back in the day when Robert Llewellyn was just doing things, on his own almost, before he joined forces with other people, and actually his little channel became, pretty much a major business.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the early episodes, it looks like somebody's done the graphics with a pen and sort of made them up, and the sort of audio and video quality was really lacking. And he's come on leaps and bounds and Fully Charged as, I think it's probably the EV YouTube channel now. Yeah, I mean, I know I've heard it whispers that the TV companies are desperate to get them onto the terrestrial TV. But they're saying they don't want to do it because they'll lose their editorial control. We've seen that recently in some of the documentaries that have come out. We see it quite regularly with the BBC's flagship motoring TV programme, who I won't mention because I absolutely hate it now, having been an avid fan for years. But I'm really pleased to see that Fifth Gear on Channel 5 are actually just going to be about EVs now. They've rebranded the show, and it's just going to be about electric vehicles.
Yeah, I kind of. I understand that, it's the sort of the sad thing about humans is that we're attracted to drama. So if you just make it all nice and positive, people are not going to tune into that particular show, or they'll change the channel. But at the same time, the journalists will say, "Oh, we want something that's fair and balanced," but they give the sort of the negative story too much weight. If they were trying to be fair and balanced, they would have mentioned, in a passing, like, "Oh yeah, some people do have issues," and then let's move on. But anyway, we're not here to talk about those things. So luckily, I agree with you. I don't like the one that shall not be mentioned BBC program. It used to be just an entertainment show, and I liked it for that. But now, I think they're trying to keep the entertainment value still in there, and I just find it too. I can't watch it. Basically, it's just anyway. So going back to, so you've had the BMW i3 for 2 years now. How often do you change the cars sort of through the Motability scheme?
The normal lease period on them is 3 years, but you can have an option at the end of that to extend them to 5. So mine will be due for change September next year. And we've already decided that we're not going to hang on to it. We're going to look for another EV. We need something a bit larger with a bigger boot. My mobility scooter just fits in the boot of the i3, but it leaves very little room for anything else. And Mrs. McBeardface wants a boot where she can put shopping in rather than having to put it in the back seats all the time. So yeah, we'll be looking for a bigger EV probably in the start of the new year. I would imagine I will start looking.
Yeah, sounds exciting. And now there's so much on the market. I'm sure you're going to find something for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I first looked at Motability when we were looking 2 years ago, there were only probably up to 20 EVs available. And now that's on the scheme. Obviously, I think there were more available in the world. And now I think they're up to about 90 EVs available. Again, in the real world, there are more available, but not every EV that's available is on the scheme. So, they pick the chooses and choose the cars that they can get the best deals from the manufacturers.
Yeah, of course.
So not every EV will appear on there. The ones that are really missing that I would like to see appear on there are the Teslas, particularly with the Model Y. I think the Model Y would really suit us.
Here's an insert from the editor at the moment. I am trying to get somebody from Motability to appear on my podcast. They've been very slow to respond. If you're on Twitter, write to them and ask them if they could please appear and answer some questions and just chat with me, please. Now back to the interview. I'm guessing Tesla's not doing Motability altogether because it's probably the OEMs have to sell it at a cost or sort of lower price.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure how the mechanics work with Motability in terms of what they look for in when they do the deal. But it would be nice, I think, if somebody from Tesla and somebody from Motability could sit down and have a chat, because I think they would be great cars to have on the scheme, the Model 3 and the Model Y.
That's true, yeah. Well, I'll insert, if I have any answers from Motability people, I'll insert them here.
Yeah, that'd be a good question to ask them. Why haven't you got Tesla on the scheme? A lot of people ask me about my disability history. And I don't mind talking about it because I think it helps if other people have the same issues or are going through that sort of thing. Most of my working life, I was pretty fit and healthy. I developed a rheumatoid arthritis when it was back in 1997-ish, because it was just before my daughter was born. I thought it was a frozen shoulder, and I was told that no, you've actually got rheumatoid arthritis in your shoulder and a couple of other joints. And up until 2012, it was managed quite well with tablets and the odd checkup. And then I was working at sea at the time. I'm a commercial boat skipper, and so spent a lot of time out on the water. And I was finding that I was losing my manual dexterity, so I was able to be able to pick up things like coins, which I find really frustrating. What else? I couldn't grip handrails. I was struggling to bend down to pick stuff off the deck. Went to see the doctor, and he said that your rheumatoid arthritis has developed to a stage that you're basically riddled with it now. It's in most joints in your body, and you really need to think about coming off the water, because if you come off a wave wrong and it's a little bit too hard and you get a jolt on your spine, it could end up putting you in a wheelchair permanently. So at that point, we decided that I would stop being at sea. I was also finding that the other things that I was training for, like electronics and a radio engineer, because of the manual dexterity, I couldn't do that. I can't sit up in a chair for too long because that starts to hurt my back. And because of the way the arthritis has affected my hands and my wrists, using a standard computer keyboard for any length of time is really difficult. So it was decided that probably the best bet for me was to retire on medical grounds.
Okay.
It was a big, tough decision because I really love being at sea. I really love that job.
Yeah, I can imagine it's very hard. I mean, it is one of those things we all forget about. Is the I can't remember the exact figures. I should probably Google it. But quite a large portion of society at some point in life we'll end up being disabled one way or the other. Like we live much longer now than we used to 100 odd years ago, but the downside is that some of the things can be medically addressed, and we just have to live with it.
Yeah, definitely. There are hundreds and thousands of people with some sort of disability. Some of them are life-changing, some of them are life-limiting, and some of them, they don't actually impact people very much. Sadly for me, because of the rheumatoid arthritis, because of the fact that I have type 1 diabetes, they both autoimmune diseases which are obviously attack your body from the inside out. And what I didn't realise is that rheumatoid arthritis actually attacks your arteries, and you start to get problems with your blood circulation. And obviously type 1 diabetes has that effect as well. Yeah. So in 2014, I suffered a heart attack, and I had some stents fitted. But then a few years later, in 2017, I started to suffer heart problems again, and I ended up having to have a triple bypass. So with all those things culminating, it seemed that from 2013, my health decided to take a nosedive, really.
Well, everyone who knows you sees you as a sort of person that's very, very sort of mobile and full of life, and certainly you're known for your jokes. So I didn't know you before all your problems have started. So I don't know how that compares, but we very much appreciate your presence in the EV community.
Thank you very much. I've always been a bit of a joker, even from school. I've also was told that I could talk the hind legs off a donkey, and my deputy head at my secondary school said that you could be able to sell sand to the Arabs. Was what he said to me. So I think that helped me in life, because I did do a number of sales jobs. One of the companies I worked for quite a while, my nickname there was Comedy John, because if there was a joke or a jape going on in the office, I was normally somewhere behind it.
That's not a bad reputation to have. Like sometimes, I wish I was a bit more jokey in life. And sales is one of those things that it's a skill that's very hard to learn and be natural in it. So
yeah, one of the things that probably one of the things that got me by was I always was of the mindset that I would never slag off my competition, because I think that degrades you as a person if all you're going to do as an effort to sell something is slag off the competition. So my ethos on it was to just be open and honest, and I would even praise some of the competition's products if I felt that they were better than in some areas than ours were. And I think my customers appreciated that honesty, because you don't always get that in sales.
No.
And also, I wasn't a double glazing salesman, so it wasn't a high pressure sale. I was more on building a relationship with the customer, building trust with the customer. And I think that's the same with the people I know now, is that I just try and be honest and open with them, and I try and build trust with people that are in my life.
Yeah, that's a very good approach. So not everybody knows, but you are a person behind Kent EV meetup sort of group, right?
Yeah, obviously Neil Roberts founded Sussex EVs, which was one of the first EV owner groups. He gently persuaded me with an arm up behind my back that maybe we should start a group in Kent, which we did. And then Neil and I started the EV Group Nexus, which, for anybody that doesn't know, is where all of the heads of all of the EV owners groups around the country get together. We have a large WhatsApp group where we discuss ideas. We plan for major events so that we go as the EV Group Nexus, which represents almost every EV owners group throughout the United Kingdom and also the Republic of Ireland. So we've got hundreds and thousands of members all around the UK and Ireland. And, there's one marquee or one stand or stall at an event that will be us all together, all basically we're singing from the same hymn sheet, which I think works really, really well.
Yeah, and also helps to have apart from like things like insurance and other things, helps to have a consistent message and like you say, you help each other because EV ownership, at least before 2020, used to be a very sort of grassroots movement, and people like in any other sort of types of ownership, like EVs, people who own classic cars or whatever, they like to meet together and chat, basically. So it's I think that helped massively with the adoption. I've been to so many EV meetups, and I've always noticed that there will be somebody lurking around and just asking questions, and people were always very helpful.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things that I really like about the EV community, because on the whole, everybody is just so nice and they're so willing and open to talk about EVs and about their particular journey. And as you say, whenever we hold an EV meet in Kent, there'll always be a few people that are using the car park or the chargers in the area that we decided to meet at, that actually, what's going on there? They all look like electric cars, let's go over. And they come and ask questions. And I also know that although we don't offer test drives, there's a few people that have taken people out for ride-alongs for a quick lap of a few roundabouts locally, so that they can actually get in the EV and experience what it's like being a passenger, at least in an electric vehicle.
Yeah, I think we often do a better job than salespeople at local garages.
Oh, most definitely. We, at the end of the day, we're not trying to sell a particular brand. We're just trying to sell electric vehicles. And, that's what we talk about, the benefits of electric vehicles. And I think that's great. And everybody's passionate about it. And I hope that continues for a long time.
So with the just to going back to sort of living with disability and EVs, do you think it's easier to sort of to operate a car like an EV when you're a disabled person? Obviously, it depends on the disability. And how would that compare to an ICE car? Are there any downsides compared to having an ICE car as a sort of disabled person?
Well, I think most disabled people find that they will need an automatic vehicle. So the fact that every EV has only got 2 gears, forward and reverse. Mm-hmm. So that, for a start, means that that's much better for the vast majority of disabled people. You haven't got to worry about smelly, dirty diesel and petrol being put into your car. Yes, you have to plug in your car, but it's just a much better driving experience. And also charging is actually, no matter what's said sometimes in the national media, charging an EV is much easier than filling a petrol or diesel car. For a disabled person, if you have a problem standing for any length of time, if you're filling with petrol or diesel, you've got to stand there all the time that you're filling your car. Yeah. Whereas with an electric car, you can plug it in and then wander off. I know for me, personally, I'll plug in a car at a rapid charger, I'll sit down and I'll listen to an audiobook. And I'm quite happy sitting in the car listening to an audiobook whilst my car's charging. Okay. Or if I'm with Mrs. McBeardface, we might go into whatever amenities are there, get a coffee, sit around and whatever. But yeah, there are lots of distinct advantages. And I think when wireless charging becomes more popular, I think that will be even better for disabled people, because they haven't got to get out of their cars and plug it in. You can just turn up at a wireless charger, sit there, wait till it's charged, and off you go.
Yeah, I actually haven't thought about that. I'm on the fence. No, I shouldn't say I'm on a fence. I know from a practical point of view, like physical point of view, wireless charging is probably not going to be it's not going to replace cables ever, but it's going to be a good addition to what we have, for those reasons.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can't see, for instance, everybody that's got a drive having wireless charging pads dug into their driveways, because that's going to be a lot of money compared to having a wall box. Mm-hmm. But if you're out and about and they've dug up the tarmac and they've laid it in, because they've still got to dig up the site to put in all the cables and everything for a stand-up charger. So putting a wireless pad under that, I don't think would be much more expensive.
Yeah.
So I think that we will see wireless charging, rapid charging sites appear, but as you say, it won't replace the cables. It will be an add-on. It won't be an either-or. It will be as well as.
Yeah, there's good. I had a sort of ranty episode a while back about wireless charging and why in general it's a bad idea, but there are niche sort of uses for it, and I think that's kind of, there's loads of startups that talk about it and have practical applications, but you usually don't hear about them after a year when the money runs out, and it's a bit of a shame, but yeah, maybe it's just maybe it should be something from your perspective. Maybe it should be something we should be pushing for a bit more. But we'll see how it goes.
I think really the only big company that I think have actually looked into it and done something with it is ABB.
Yeah.
Because I know the safety car and the medical car for Formula E, they sit on wireless charging pads at the races.
Okay.
So, and I think from what I understand, it's a movable pad. So they can take it from race to race. They put it on the floor. A bit like the stuff that you see that they put inside marquees for rally cars, that interlocking flooring that you can park a car on. I think it's a bit of that they put on the floor. The car sits over it, and it charges, and away it goes.
Yeah.
But yes, as you say, there are lots of startups that talk about it and then disappear after, say, 6 months. I think we're going to see a lot of startups in the EV sector covering everything to do with EVs that will suddenly appear with a really good idea, and then, as you say, once the money runs out, then it doesn't go any further. Because we're already seeing lots of companies jumping on the bandwagon to be part of the EV space.
Well, it's a hot market at the moment, isn't it? It's an upcoming market, so it's good to be there. But sadly, quite often they don't look back at what's been done before, and they're trying to reinvent the wheel and dug up the dead horse, as they say.
Yeah.
I mean, the other alternative is obviously that we turn up at the service station and there's a robotic arm plugging it into our car.
It's funny because that's exactly what I was about to say, that there are already robotic arms, although they are sort of prototypes that I've seen mostly for plugging in Teslas. But yeah, that would be super. Be able to pull up and then it does it all for you.
Yeah, and I think that's actually probably easier a problem to solve than wireless charging, personally.
I think you're probably right. Robotics is probably way ahead of wireless charging.
I'm sure it is. And the trouble with wireless charging is physics, right? You always kind of have losses, and you have to have contact between the two sort of coils. They have to be close to each other and in line with each other. And as you know, there's if you get them a little bit off, the losses are massive, and that heats up the environment around you. So that's not great.
No.
There's loads of things that are basically not. The wireless is basically not an answer to sort of it's not the replacement. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. But I think the reason why nobody's pursuing the robotic arms idea is that it's not as sexy of a solution as wireless charging. It's the same reason why people are still talking about hydrogen for everything, because this is a beautiful notion that you just get the water out of it and that's somehow the best thing ever, and you kind of ignore everything else. It's the same thing with wireless charging. The idea that you just turn up and stop and something happens, that's like the best solution. The trouble is nothing works that easy in life.
No, I mean, we already see it now with wireless charging for phones. I mean, I've got a wireless charger here at home for my phone, and it's a nightmare because if you haven't got the phone in exactly the right place, it doesn't charge.
Yeah.
So I understand the pitfalls of wireless
Yeah.
charging. And don't get me started on hydrogen. You know my thoughts on that.
I mean, I used to be very excited about hydrogen when I was young, but then I learned physics, and and yeah. Speaking of wireless charging, this is why Apple, for instance, have done a very simple solution to the wireless charging misalignment. They just put magnets in the back, so you're when you have one of the newer iPhones, the wireless pad just kind of snaps into place with a magnet. And I love that solution. It's the best solution ever. It's like the simplest solution. It's a bit noisy because when you put your phone down on the on that pad, it makes a heck of a noise. But you kind of guaranteed that it's going to be aligned. And that way they were able to increase the amount of power they can feed through, which is also a good thing.
I mean, my watch is a wireless charger, and it's a Xiaomi rather than an Apple Watch. But again, it locks on in place with a magnet, and it charges spot on. It locks itself in place. It knows where it needs to be. And I did have an Apple Watch before that, and it did exactly the same. It was really good.
Yeah.
The only downside is the Apple charging products are way, way more expensive than some of the other stuff that's available, and you don't get that with the cheaper products.
Yeah, that's true. But I do like the simplicity of the fact that they just decided to put a magnet in there. To me, that's an elegant solution to the a massive problem of like I say, of wireless charging in general. And ABB, is one of those companies. They've been around electrical sort of charging and battery solutions for decades now. I don't know how old they are, but I know they've been on the ball for a long time, because one of the places I go to very often, Krakow in Poland, they've got a massive office there, and I think all the electric buses that they have ABB chargers, and you see their logos everywhere.
Yeah.
Cool. What else can we talk about? I'll be, because you've been very active in the EV space, and like you say, you've created you put together the Kent EVs group. Have you done anything like this sort of on the other side of things, that I wouldn't know about? Like, do you have any meetups with other sort of disabled people? I don't want to sound like I'm using this as a sort of bad term. I don't know what it will be the better way of putting it, but do you have any other meetups or any other groups on the other side of things as well?
Honestly, no. I mean, I know that there are active groups for people with things like rheumatoid arthritis, who've got heart disease, who have had bypasses and stuff like that. I'm on a Facebook group for, it's called Heart Attack Survivors, and it's an international Facebook group. But no, not actual meetups. They did some Zoom get-togethers during lockdown, but I didn't partake in any of those because there were thousands of people wanting to do it, and that all had to be whittled down a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, because EVs is really my passion. That's what I tend to get involved with. Sadly, lockdown and everything else to do with the COVID virus has hit us hard when it comes to sort of meetups and all of that side of things, and even the events. I mean, I love Fully Charged. I think it's probably one of the best outdoor events that I've ever been to, and I've been to lots, and with work during my working life. But yeah, I like Fully Charged.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing event, and every year it just grows and grows. It's anytime I go there, it's every year I go to any sort of meetups, not just Fully Charged, but any sort of events that way. The growth is exponential. Basically, it's just blowing up.
Yep.
Which is probably not the best way to describe it, but
no, probably not. And I think one of the big things that I really like about it is I get to meet face to face all the people that I chat to, either via Facebook or Twitter or WhatsApp, that I'm talking to all year round. We have the opportunity to get together. We're manning stands together. We're wandering around. We're chatting. We're going out for meals and we're going out for drinks, and I think that's absolutely fantastic, and long may it continue.
Hear, hear. Is there anything else I haven't mentioned, I haven't talked to you about, any...
Well, obviously, we have some issues at the moment with rapid charging spaces in particular and disability access. I've certainly found, and I know others have, where some of the setups at rapid chargers are, how do I put it, not inclusive for disabled people. They're actually, the way that they're designed and put together actually makes it really difficult, if not impossible, for people who have severe disability, shall we say, wheelchair users in particular, will struggle to get access to those chargers. I'm quite lucky that I can get up and I can move about to a sort of limited degree. But somebody who's wheelchair or confined to a wheelchair will find it very difficult to access some chargers. I'm really heartened to see that there are some of the charger networks are taking that on board and are now looking at having disability consultants for when they're designing their new hubs or their new charge spot. I got invited to go and inspect one in Dartford recently for Osprey. They asked me to go and have a look at it and check it out, and I have to say it was brilliant. The way that they've put it together, it's the new tritium chargers that or boxes that they've used, and the way that they've laid it out, rather than it being at the end where you reverse or drive into the charger, they've done it like a petrol station where you drive in and the charger's to the left or to the right of your car.
Okay, just kind of like grid serve.
Yeah. And the way that the cabling's done is the cable will reach, no matter which way you park in, the cable will reach any charging point at any point around the car. So that's good. But one of the, as I've said before, one of the big issues, particularly with people with some disabilities, is the weight of the charging cables. And unfortunately, as the speeds are going up, then the charging cable thickness is going up as well.
Yeah.
And also when they're introducing things like liquid cooling, you've not only got the weight of the raw materials, you've got the weight of water being cycled around the cable to keep the cables cool.
Yeah, I've seen some people have tried introducing chargers with the arm that would extend and kind of carry the weight of the cable to help you. But I haven't seen too many of those.
No, around. I think the Chempowers do it.
Yeah,
which is very good. But
there's this very sexy sort of little charger that everyone's always surprised how nice they are.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of those because Osprey are working with Chempower, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of theirs going in around the UK.
So you said about the sort of access to the disabled, for the disabled people to chargers. The two questions there. How have you done any long routes yourself? Just to test things out. Have you been? How easy is it basically for somebody like yourself? Because never mind the person who's just anxious about charging in general, and those people exist, especially if they haven't done any long routes in an EV. But I presume having a disability kind of adds on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I limit myself to 200 miles, but my car will do just under that, but 150, 200 miles is my maximum. It's pretty much what I call my bladder range. Long gone are the days where I could drive Scotland to Ramsgate without stopping. But so, I'd need to stop. And I do tend to plan my routes. I think one of the big issues with people swapping from an ICE car to an EV car is the fact that with an EV, at the moment, you do have to do a little journey planning before you go anywhere. My best mate Steve, whenever he goes anywhere, he'll have primary charges where he's going to stop, but then he also has a backup charging location as well. So he'll go, in next about 100 miles, I'm going to stop here. But if that one's not working or it's full, then I go 5 miles around the corner and I know there's another charger here. And I think people at the moment want to be able to get out of an ICE car, get in an EV and drive it exactly the same as you would an ICE car. And I think at the moment that isn't quite there.
No.
I think the e-charging infrastructure is good, and you will be able to find chargers. You will be able to find chargers en route. And luckily now, when you go to any of the UK service stations on the motorway, you're actually getting a choice. You've either got the electric highway, and a lot of them now you've got Ionity.
Yes,
And it's not just 2 chargers in the petrol station. You know, Ionity on average are putting 8 chargers in. So you've got a very good chance of being able to get around the UK on the motorway network without having a problem charging.
Yeah, that's a good point. I tend not to plan my my trips, but it's just because I know that, you know, if I drive, like I say, on the major motorway or whatever, there is going to be service stations and there will be a charger. And the other thing I've learned is with my car can do about 250 mile on the charge. I will need to stop earlier, and then that, even if it's just to have, you know, 10 minutes stretch of my legs or have a coffee or whatever, it's just required because it will take me a couple of hours to do that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that I advocate, and I think it's good for people with disabilities as well as able-bodied people, is at the moment, no matter what EV you've got, you'll have to stop within 200 or 300 miles because that's the maximum range of your car.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to stop for about half an hour. With the best will in the world, it's going to be at a half an hour on average. I think that makes for safer roads because it actually means that drivers are well rested, because every couple of 100 miles they're stopping, they're getting out of the car, they're stretching their legs, they may be having a loo break, they may be getting something to eat. And I think half an hour rested before you get back onto the motorway means that you're not tired, you're in a better frame of mind. And that's one of the big things I advocate for driving an EV, is I find an EV much more relaxing to drive than I would an ICE car.
I fully agree. I've been saying that to people.
I don't know why that is, but I actually am a more mellow driver in an EV than I ever was by driving a petrol or diesel. I used to be quite an angry driver. You know, everybody on the road's an idiot. My God, where did you learn to indicate? Where did you get your driving license? Pick and mix, all that sort of stuff. But I'm much more chilled now.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing. It's the fact that you're driving in a sort of quiet environment, and you still have that speed if you need it, and you have even more speed than you know, in a nice car, or power, I should say. But it's much more relaxing environment. If you want to, you can just chill and, you know, kick back and relax. And like I say, I think way too many people do. We kind of joke that people are always saying, "Oh, but I want to drive from, you know, Edinburgh to Penshurst in one go." But I'm sure there are people who do very long drives in private vehicles, and they don't stop, and then they drive like muppets, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I can honestly say that I have done Glasgow to Ramsgate non-stop. I've been up there for doing a small exhibition, and then all you want to do is just get home when you've had a long weekend working at an exhibition. And then, you know, I'll leave the exhibition on a Sunday evening or a Saturday lunchtime, depending when it finishes, excuse me, and I'll just drive all the way home. Make sure the tank's full, and away you go. And I look back on it now and think just how stupid that was. Because when you get home, you're absolutely exhausted. Your bladder feels like it's about to burst, and it's actually difficult. You have difficulty walking. And I just think, no, actually having shorter ranges and shorter available ranges in vehicles makes for safer roads.
Yeah. I drove a few times from Cork to Belfast, or Belfast to Cork and back. I don't know how many miles that is, but it's a long drive, and you enter the town after driving on the motorway for so long, and you literally feel like everything just goes past you very, very quickly, and it's not very safe. And yeah, looking back at it myself, I've never enjoyed that. I always needed quite a few hours to kind of recover after it, and that's not great.
No, definitely not.
Do people, disabled people in ICE cars, do they tend to drive a bit more as well, or is that because obviously you've mentioned there's obviously hundreds of different or thousands of different types of disabilities, so I don't want to generalize, but generally you probably need some sort of a rest or stretch your limbs or whatever, or you have a disability in your hands or whatever, you do need to kind of recover from having to focus, right?
From my personal experience, I need to have a break. Obviously, I need a certain driving position to make it comfortable for me, and the flip side of that is actually being in that position for any length of time has an adverse effect as well.
Yeah.
Definitely I need to rest more often than I would have done when I was driving an ICE vehicle. Or, I had 2 ICE vehicles whilst I was disabled before getting the EV. And I wouldn't drive to the full length of the tank. I would still have to stop every 150, 200 miles because I needed a break.
Okay.
Because the other thing is, if you've got a full bladder, you're not concentrating on your driving.
No, you're just thinking about where's the loo, right?
Exactly. How long can I push it to and I think that's not good for anybody.
No.
Disabled or able-bodied. But as you say, there are thousands of different disabilities, and every one of us is different, and everybody's needs are different. Some people need cars with adaptions on them, and again, an electric car is easier to adapt than an ICE car, in my humble opinion. Some people need hoists, and where we're now starting to see vehicle-to-load adaptions in vehicles, it means that actually you bolt the hoist in, and then getting the hoist to work is much easier because you can plug it into the vehicle to load cabling rather than having to come off the 12-volt battery. So then you can run the hoist off of the drive battery rather than the auxiliary battery. Because one thing I've noticed is the 12-volt auxiliary batteries in EVs are much smaller capacity than they would be in an ICE car because they don't have to deep cycle on the starting sequence. So the less load you can put on that battery, the better.
Yeah, I do wonder whether car manufacturers, I need to ask some people who I know in the OEM space, do they consider these things when they design vehicles? I know that they do consider different sort of different human factors. Like some people have different size of fingers or whatever, or different lengths of hands, or some people are left-handed, right-handed, and all that. But I do wonder if they actually take into account that down the line somebody with disability might be able to drive this car, and they actually need to be able to, I don't know, say, do everything with just left hand, or just because they actually missing a limb, or they don't, or some people do not have feet.
I would be very, very surprised to hear that a vehicle manufacturer genuinely considers disabilities when they're designing their cars. I think they would consider able-bodied differences, as you say, arm length, leg length, back lengths, all that sort of thing. But I would be very surprised if disabilities is even on their radar.
Yeah. The other thing that, speaking of kind of designing chargers differently, because I'm able-bodied at the moment anyway, and I sometimes struggle to plug in cars when it's super tight. Like Instavolt has been putting their chargers in McDonald's recently, and they're crammed in corners usually, and it's very hard to even park 2 cars next to each other and plug in and just get to the charger if somebody's on the next parking space to you, or if you have to park right next to the wall or right next to the hedge. You got a limited amount of choice basically when it comes to wiggling the cable. And like I said, the cables are very thick, so it's a bit of a ballet dancing routine basically sometimes to kind of unwrap the cable, plug it in, open the flap, and then figure out which way to start the charging and then go back.
I think the best way I've described it is it's like trying to convince a boa constrictor to go down a hole head first, because that's what it feels like sometimes with charging cables.
I wonder what they're going to do about those sort of situations as well. I
think at the moment they're being led by probably, I do know this because of some inside information that I have. They are led by what they're being given to areas to install a charger. So if they go into a car park at a supermarket or into a pub or whatever, they are told, we can let you have X, Y, and Z space, but that's all you're getting. And then they have to fit their chargers to suit what they're given. And I think that's going to happen for a little while at the moment until they realise that actually EV charging is good for our business. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do is make sure there is space for it. I don't think there's that train of thought at the moment. It's a case of you can have that and no more. And then they have to cram it in. So a lot of it, I don't think is the charging company's fault. I think it's a combination of factors that means that actually this is what you're going to get, and there isn't anything we can do about it. I think it becomes different when they're building hubs, because a hub is a wide open space. They're building what they want, and it's much easier to then make things easier for everybody.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think? Well, from the chats that I had with a couple of people from charging networks, I know that their aim is at the moment to kind of secure the place and connection to the grid. And that's kind of their first, they're not making money on it currently. They know this is the future, so they have to kind of, be in there just to kind of be able to grow, right?
Yeah.
And like I say, they're probably just given a space and they just have to live with it or work with it, which is not too bad because that makes everyone a bit more focused, and we need more chargers to make the adoption kind of keep going up. I think there's still plenty, or there are tons of chargers now compared to when I started driving EV in sort of late 2015. So things are looking up basically, but now with more and more chargers and more EV owners, we need to actually look at other people, disabled people as well as there's lots of women who are kind of afraid to charge in a dark lit unlit location in the middle of nowhere in the evening when they're by themselves for obvious reasons.
And I've said this before, is that accessibility isn't just about disabled people, it's about other people. Not every man in the world is big, strapping and able to act like a rugby player. So, and vulnerability is a big issue, and I find it an issue for myself, and I know that it is for men and women. And it is quite scary that some of these chargers, because this is the space they were given, it's tucked in the back end of nowhere, it's hidden, there's no lighting apart from the glow coming off of the screen.
Yeah.
And there's no security. So what it would be really nice is if these chargers, as we're moving forward, because now's the time to make the changes or implement the sets of guidelines to make things happen, that charging points have a canopy. They have lights. They have CCTV. They've got to have a connection to the internet or the Ethernet to do data for things like RFIDs or contactless billing. So putting in an IP camera is not beyond the wit of man to ensure that you've got cameras covering the charging bays so that you can see what's going on. So God forbid anybody's attacked, or something goes on, that there is evidence of it, video evidence.
Yeah.
Or It would, in the opposite thing, if people know that it's well lit and there's cameras and the cameras are monitored, that actually then people are more reluctant to do anything nefarious in around the charging bays.
Yeah. And it is a bit of a differentiator as well to have those things in. And I've seen in person people being attacked at the time ecotricity chargers on M1 by, let's just say, people who were not very happy about EVs in general. They just basically blocked the charger for somebody and were very aggressive. And it was because there was no cameras, and even though it was a car park, the charger was in the far end that was fairly poorly lit, and everyone parked close to the entrance, so that area kind of becomes an open space for somebody else to be a bully, essentially.
That's shocking. Absolutely shocking.
Yeah, and I was the only one person who basically stood up to them and just tell them to go where they should go, because I cannot stand bullies.
I hate bullies. Absolutely.
That was a while ago when EVs were fairly new, but I was shocked basically. So yeah, I when it comes to canopies, it's interesting because for me it's a no-brainer. We kind of both know a lot about electronics and stuff like that, and when you leave a fragile piece of electronics equipment outdoors all the time in all this sort of weather, obviously it's going to deteriorate quicker. So putting a little bit of canopy that not only shields the human but also the equipment should be a no-brainer when you were installing a bunch of chargers.
And to be fair, it's not going to take away from the charger. It's going to add to the charger.
Yeah.
It's everybody that you speak to says, why haven't we got canopies? If you go to a petrol station, I'd say almost 100% of them are under some sort of canopy.
Yeah.
And that should be the same for EV charging.
Yep.
I know it is safe, but people do worry about plugging in charge cables when it's raining. So yeah, protection is good, and it lights the whole area because you can put a whole load of LEDs into a canopy and actually floodlight the area where the chargers are.
Yeah, and they'll be a bit more visible that way as well. I think,
exactly. You'll be able to spot them from a mile off.
Yeah.
And as we both know, a decent LED doesn't require a lot of electricity.
No. It's literally just, couple of watts of that could be on all the time.
Yeah.
I think Rolex they've started putting LEDs in their destination chargers now.
Okay.
But I haven't seen them around. They're little kind of black boxes. I think there's plenty of them by the seaside and near Folkestone and sort of that way. Near Dover as well. They're just little black boxes with Type 2 socket. And if you imagine on top of it kind of a ring of LEDs just to kind of light up the area. I think that's a great thing. That's a great idea.
Yeah, no, definitely. I also suggested a while back that maybe people should think about putting LEDs in charge cables. So if a charge cable's lying on the floor, all the time it's plugged into the car, it lights up.
Yeah.
Making the charge cable, really, really visible.
Yeah, and you can use it kind of like a torch if you have one of those EVs that doesn't have a very good lit charging port, so you can see where you're going.
Yeah, no.
That's a very cool idea. Hopefully somebody will pick it up.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing if anyone's interested in talking to you about not only disability and charging, but also kind of consulting with you, they can reach out to you via Twitter.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to talk to any charge company, infrastructure company who want to talk about disability access. Who want, if they need somebody that can look at their designs or their sites to see whether they're disability and accessibility friendly. I'm happy to do that, and I'm quite happy to do it free of charge as well. I think it's important to give back. If I've got the knowledge and I can share it, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, and you're a very technically minded person yourself, so it's not like you're you're just giving it from the sort of the perspective of a disabled person, but you're also able to kind of understand technical constructions.
Yeah.
Cool. Last thing that I always ask everyone, but nobody knows it off the top of their head anyway. Do you know any good EV jokes?
Oh, no. I think it's shocking that I don't. Oh, there you go. There's a joke. It's not a very good one. Do you know any EV jokes?
No, shocking.
No, definitely.
No, I don't. I've, like I said, in the years that I've been doing this, I haven't heard any single one. But I always like to ask people.
No, I don't think I've ever heard any EV jokes. I might have to see if I can write a few.
Go for it. Go for it. Right. Thank you, John.
No problem at all, Greg. Really enjoyed it.
Right, that's it when it comes to the interview with John. I hope you enjoyed this. There is going to be another part to this, hopefully with Motability. Like I said in the insert, if you can ask them on Twitter on my behalf to just get on and get asked some questions, that would be very nice. I think it would be nice to hear from them. I also have another guest who will be talking about optimizations towards people with all sorts of other issues, and just who differentiate from the mean, basically, not just disabilities, which I hope you'll find interesting. But that will come next. I don't want to make this episode too long. As always, thank you for listening. If you've been listening this far, you're amazing. Follow me on Twitter. Look us up on Patreon and just check us a quid. It would help so much. And spread the word. Subscribe everyone in your family, and I'll see you on the next one. There's quite a lot of episodes I've got in the chamber to be revealed in the next month. So watch out. See you later.